Alrighty, well, it's the top of the hour, so we're about to get started again. I hope everyone had a chance to go grab a coffee or a snack or possibly lunch. All right, before we get started again, I'm going to go over the ground rules. All right. As always, we are at the mercy of tech during these presentations, so as smoothly as we try to make these things go, we do have to. Alrighty, well, it's the top of the hour, so I have some feedback happening. Again. I hope everyone had a chance to go grab a coffee or a snack or possibly lunch. Right. Before we get started again, I'm going to go over the ground rules. It's an excellent example of a tech. I wasn't expecting some feedback on that. All right, yeah, so we are at the mercy of tech. We are going to run into some issues every now and again. So please bear with us as we try to solve any presentation or program errors as they appear. Please be respectful. We know that it can be a bit easier to be a bit rude when you're hiding behind a screen, but we want you to treat this as if you were in an in-person conference. And in the same regards as you would at an in-person conference, please continue to network, engage, and interact. You can do that through the webinar chat, or you can also use our hashtag on Twitter. It's hashtag ARBIC, as you can see on the screen. And please feel free to interact throughout the presentation. At the end of the presentation, we will be reading comments and questions. Alrighty. With that, I'm going to let Jamaal take over. He's going to talk to us about inclusivity in design and accessibility.
Awesome, thank you. Let's see, can I have permission to share my screen? All right, got it. Okay, sweet. Nice. Yeah, so we're going to talk about making inclusive design accessible to everyone, and exactly what does that mean, and how can we better think about pulling in different types of people into our research process when we are designing digital products and services. I think one of the best places to start, at least with the inclusive design piece, is going over the seven design principles of inclusive design, so we can better pretty much understand these 7 main things that we should always be doing, so that we can have a ground of just best practices to see maybe where we need to improve on one of the principles that we may not be doing all the time as actual designers, and as also researchers and as builders of digital products and services. So when we kind of get into exactly what is inclusive design and how do we break that down so people can better understand the purpose of it, it really is coming down to designing for as many people as possible with as many divergent needs as possible. So really trying to design for particular use cases of a population, and how can we broaden that out to other potential use cases with maybe people who maybe do not have the same type of disability or different type of impairment. And something else too that is really potent inside the design community now is building in the co-design process into inclusive design. So when we are building out our data collection tools, who are the people we are leaving out of our samples that we are talking about, and just making it clear this is why we left them out, and this is how we hope to maybe connect with them in the future. And not just designing and coming back and forth, but like I said, really designing together. So one of the things that you hear a lot is nothing about us without us. So really focusing on pulling in the user into the research experience as soon as possible, so that you can have a better understanding of their particular need when it comes to utilizing whatever service or product you are. And also really trying to spread this knowledge throughout the organization of different types of digital products and different types of researchers that you may be working with, as well as product owners and managers too. So like what exactly is the first principle is basically is provide a comfortable experience. So like really focusing on and making sure that everyone have the ability to interact with whatever the user interfaces that you are basically designing and collecting data for. So like if you are building up a survey, making sure that like whatever tool you are using to build that particular survey in is actually accessible to people who may be utilizing screen readers so that they can better understand what exactly the survey is basically asking and the data that you want to collect. So, and also like testing out with populations, it's not just people with like very severe disabilities. It could be populations from different types of economical background, as well as coastal backgrounds as well. So trying to pull in as many of those users as possible so they can have a better understanding of how they are interpreting the actual content that you are sharing with them or trying to collect. And then we kind of go into a couple of these examples. And I kind of like test on one already, really focusing on like, you know, if the alt text is like readable on whatever your tool is, making sure that there are other like features available. So if you are like having users watch a video and then maybe just answer a couple questions, making sure that that video actually has like has like a closed caption feature, so that maybe someone who maybe is just like learning a particular language can still interpret what exactly that video is meaning. So really trying to like always do more like good than harm, and never try to like let someone feel like they are excluded from utilizing whatever your product or service is. So it has to make sure it actually is accessible to a particular demographic. Let's see here. Yeah, and the next one is basically consider the situation. So like if someone is doing a survey on their phone and they may be doing it on a bus or in a public transit area or outside, really thinking about like how does that like affect their answers, and do you have like very accessible like targets for that like mobile device so they can actually hit it and understand it as well, and making sure that like Braille and things are in considerate of that, especially when you are like providing like a lot of like open text questions and things of that nature, and making sure that the cutoffs is actually accessible as well is another really big thing. So like looking for the making sure there's a proper cutoff contrast, because like a very large percentage of the population is some form of colorblind. So really fun to see how can that interpret the actual data collection experience as well. And also too, like just really fun to help people understand that maybe this is their first time utilizing this type of interface. So like there are various digital skill literacy levels that you do have to incorporate into your design process and data collection efforts, to really think about like, you know, what if someone had never used the mouse before? How do they interact with that? What if they can't use the mouse because maybe they have like a physical impairment? So I really wanted to think about that, as well as inside the smartphone example too. So like making sure that you have like keyboard navigation play and the ability to switch back and forth is really important when you are like really trying to consider what exactly is the situation that the individual you are actually designing for to collect data from. And the third principle is always be consistent. So basically, you want to apply things that the user have already maybe known or have seen inside of any type of data collection effort. So like, except for you maybe testing out a new like word or a new like button you want to test out, maybe you should want some user testing, some A/B testing, look at your analytics and try to stick to those consistent patterns. I don't think there's nothing wrong with testing things, but if you're just changing things because you think it might be more visually appealing, you might be leaving out a very large segment of users who maybe cannot even see that visual appealing content. So really try to understand like what exactly you are doing with your interfaces and how, what are those basic design trends and patterns that people are understanding about on the internet that could really, you could leverage to meet like various users who have like various disability, not disability, but various accessibility levels when it comes to digital technology and utilizing technology as well. So really trying to figure out what it is consistent patterns that you can utilize across your information architecture on your landing page or data collection tools so you can better have a understanding of how these users navigate that. So you don't have to put like more cognitive strain on someone who maybe haven't seen this design pattern before. Always give control. So I think giving control, it kind of like ensures that the human being who you are collecting this data from has a very good accurate understanding of what they are consenting to. So like an example of this is like I've gotten the opportunity to do a lot of research focusing on like different types of SMS texting. And you have to get user consent at the very first message, or you cannot like continue that. So like it's very similar focus groups and things like that. Really trying to make sure that the person you're speaking to understand, they can stop this at any moment and give them control to navigate and to also self-identify as they kind of go through the experience as well. So like being able to scroll, I think is really important to users when it comes to navigation, and even when it comes to completing surveys as well. And also thinking about the hierarchy, if you are using any type of drop listings, like what exactly are the populations you are putting at the top of the list, and what are the power dynamics that has to go with someone has to scroll the bottom. So like maybe you want to like focus more on randomizing that feature. So like when you do get that data, that might not be something that you have to take into your considerations of selecting your results. And also like allowing people to zoom in and out and any type of data collection tool if it's available, I think is super helpful. So giving people the opportunity to maybe be somewhat visually impaired to zoom in and out of the actual experience so that they can better read and understand what exactly they are trying to do. And the next one is awful choice. So like always being consistent and offering people multiple ways to do things, different types of workarounds and tasks so that they can get the most out of their customized experiences. So like humans, like I said before, we are all very different. We all come from various coastals and various places around the world. So there are like coastal norms as well as economic and also social behaviors that we have to consider when we are giving someone the interaction, and making sure that some people might not have the same cognitive abilities as other individuals. So really trying to take that into consideration when you are designing these tools and doing any type of research is like, why the task not being completed? So like an example of this is it not being completed because maybe they're on this website so long because they cannot leave the page. Maybe there's a pop-up there, and if you're on a screen reader, you cannot access the exit button. So you're in like what we call like a flat. So you can't even navigate out of that. So like you can share those web analytical data and put them inside those insights. Really try to break them down from like an accessibility point of view. Always looking at the layouts, making sure you have like an actual proper grid, things of that nature. And like I said before, that like larger images are actually sized appropriately. And if you can, add those alt tags to actually describe what that image is most of the time. And if you cannot do that, then like just make sure it's not an image that has to convey any type of information. And also always trying to make sure that there is an accessible alternative when presenting any type of data. So any type of feedback loops you're trying to close, make sure there's multiple ways that users can actually understand that and actually opt into that processes. Like I said too, it's very similar when it comes to screeners too. So making sure that they do have the opportunity to self-identify, whatever that might be, from not just a list that you maybe want to. So always try to add those others too. So giving users choice. and prioritizing content. So like making sure that like you have a clear information architecture is something that I found to be very important. So you can actually navigate through tasks and focus orders. That's especially if you are designing for any type of data collection effort for users who may be or utilizing a particular screen reader. So really being able to make sure that the hierarchy and the tasks makes a lot of sense, and it stays on task with the actual features that you are like designing for. And the same exact thing if you are basically collecting any type of follow-up data, so any phone numbers or emails or things like that, making sure that those forms are properly tagged. So like if a user who are utilizing a screen reader, they can actually have access to that information and know what they're tagging in. And if you can, be like as specific as possible, especially when there are any types of error messages that may occur inside the content. So really bringing the user out of that experience. Try to always communicate with where they are for it, so they can have the ability to prioritize the content that they want to consume and understand what is the most important. And the very last one, number 7, is adding value. So I always find to think about communicating to the user, why exactly do we as researchers find this information helpful, and how do we plan to utilize that to share back with them to show that we have provided some type of value. It shouldn't just be a give and take relationship. I think it should be a relationship that is built upon caring and empathy, and really trying to focus on the connection of how this content that we are utilizing and showing out are being used to help shape the world. And we also can like do that with like a number of different ways and different types of integration, data visualization tools to share that information back out with users after we have collected it, as long as it isn't like something that's super private, and like make sure it always is consolidated information, and focusing on how actually easy is it to complete the task that we want people to complete and focus on, so that we can have a better experience that's accessible to everyone. So it's always fun to add the value. And the next slide here is just a couple of resources. So you can kind of check out a couple of Figma plugins, as well as some resources on accessibility, and some more readings about things I've cited inside the presentation. So yeah, if there's any questions or anything, I would just love to be able to share if there's any. Thank you.
Alrighty, let's take a look at those questions. We have a comment from Tommy saying, I would love to get these resources and sources links. Jamaal, where can they access these?
Yes, this is inside of a Figma file. I can actually share, let me see if I can show the file for you guys. There we go. And I want to be, yeah. Okay, let me see. All right, cool. Yeah, so you can just copy that link and you can give access to the whole presentation, the deck, as well as the links that you can dig deeper into. A lot of those links left one is just like the Microsoft Accessibility Toolkit, as well as the Inclusion Design Toolkit, as well as I believe IBM by Apple Accessibility for All is one of those resources as well. So yeah, there's a lot of really cool resources. Also, a lot of references as far as like WC3 WCAG, I think is 2.1 we're on now in the US standards about like accessibility and websites. So yeah.
Alrighty, and so for anybody who wants to access those, the link is currently in chat. And I will see, we might be able to share that on our Twitter. I will double check if you do that. So stay tuned, keep an eye out on our Twitter if you guys want to access that link and after this meeting is closed. I don't see any, oh, there's one question just popped up. Okay. From Megan, what's the best software / language / packages that make it easy to enable accessible environments? Any advice on market research questionnaires, specifically where customers are providing their opinions?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, I think there's a lot of really good research as far as like accessible data collection tools. So like I know that SurveyMonkey puts out a report. You can look at any of the survey collection tools, accessibility features built inside any type of the Coursera platform as well. So like there's a lot of good ways to do it. I think it's mainly just making sure that like when you are building up your data collection tool, that you make sure it is accessible to people who maybe are on a screen reader. So like making sure that like it makes sense, hierarchy and focus, and using as plain as language as possible is just a good practice too. I know like I think like the average grade reading level of people inside of America, that's like where I'm based out of, is I believe it's like 7th or 8th grade. So I really find them not like exceed anything that's too high based off of your particular population. So I think that was like a really good starting point. But yeah, there's a number of tools and stuff like that. You can even see some of those, I think, in the resources when you get to like the IBM toolkit and the Microsoft one as well. That could reference some really better things that I can probably do off the top of my head.
And then we got another one from James. I started using a phrase and hashtag digital empathy in part to refer to this important topic.
Oh, interesting.
More of a comment.
Yeah, I've never heard of that hashtag before, but I'm definitely going to start utilizing it. Like, I definitely think like if you want to be an advocate inside this space, like utilizing hashtags, sharing out knowledge whenever you can, and just making sure like when you are doing your research, if it is a product or a service that maybe an individual with like a different type of impairment can use, that you advocate for them and just ask them, have we done any testing with users that are blind or users that maybe have any type of cognitive issues? So just really advocate for that inside of any type of research that you're doing. I think it's the really great. Yeah, but there's a whole bunch of really cool hashtags too. I think that'd be really cool too. Let me know if you guys can hit me up on LinkedIn. You can show me the hashtags you utilize about this, and maybe we can make like a Figma board or something to display them all or something like that to show out people. But yeah, that sounds like a really good one. I like that. There's no empathy.
All right, and where can they find you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so I'm Jamaal, Jamaal, Digital Davis, and that's pretty much like my main form of communication. People hit me up with any questions. They can tag me in anything like that, anything they want to show out. And just follow me. I'll definitely like to post content, show stuff out whenever I can. But yeah, so definitely feel free to connect with me.
Is that a link that you could share in the chat right now?
Yeah, give me 1 second, pull it up.
Right. While you do that, I'm going to read another comment from Megan again.
Okay.
She follows up with, do you have any advice on balancing budget and accessibility for tools/platforms that businesses have already built? What is the one area that you would focus on to have the biggest customer experience?
Ooh, that's a big question, Megan.
Hear me trying to enunciate.
Yeah. That's a really big question. I would say if you're inside that situation, one of the things I'll probably first start on is just figuring out what are some of the digital software that you're using that is accessible and meet level standards you want to have versus the ones who aren't. And then from there, you can start to, they have these things they're called voluntary accessibility product templates. So basically from there, start to build out that with your vendors. So make sure that these are the list of accessibility issues that you guys have to meet your own internal standards. And I think as far as any motivation to make things switch and to move forward, like I said, it's a really big question. There is people might talk about it, but there's a lot of lawsuits going on inside this space now. So you can look at the data on that, but there's been a number of agencies. Like I know like Domino's got sued, I think Target got sued. Like a lot of companies have been sued for not having accessible experiences. So us is like the least of this was we can like prevent that in the early phases if we can call these problems out before the products get shipped. So yeah, that's a really big question. I don't know if I answered it all, but I gave my best shot.
I actually have a tag along question to that.
Okay.
How would you in that it might be the same thing that you just said, but what advice would you give for somebody who's trying to increase the accessibility for their company, but is trying to avoid having to do like a whole rebranding thing? Say that the branding isn't very accessible at the moment, but they don't want to uproot everything?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say figure out what you can start with and then build like a use case. So like I like to really focus. Now we're getting into like strategy. This is fun thing. I like to really focus on like small wins. So like really try to establish what something that I can win quickly at and something that I can use to show senior level stakeholders. This is why we should pivot everything to more accessibility practices, and I think that can be done like on numerous ways. I'm thinking even just like email campaigns. You can definitely do an A/B test on accessibility email campaign versus a non-accessibility email, and then really share that out with your stakeholders, and then match that with like because of these things are not only are these things that we are stopping people from being able to access our service and products. These are also things that we can potentially run into financial problems with like legal actions for not being able to do these things. So then from there, I would say establish the plan and to figure out who the people inside the organization that want to make that change. So are the people when you come and say like, yo, have we tested this with screen readers? Is the email accessible? Who are the people that say, yeah, have we done that? Who have we got to talk to about that? And start to work with them and just build that culture up and make it something that's like fun and everyone should be motivated to. Because like this isn't something that like separates one human being from another. We're talking about the differences, but these are differences that we are all going to probably face at some point in our life if we are lucky enough to age and to have cognitive decline and things of that nature. So your hearing is going to go at some point. Your visual eyes are going to go. So really try to think about that, and also the situational aspect of it too. So you maybe can have all your tendons and motor skills now, but what happens if you break your arm and now you only have your left hand? You don't know how to use your left hand. So really try to just pull it in and make it let people know by doing this and investing in this, they're going to get more clients. They're going to get more uses on the part on digital services because now more people can access it and because those borders or those barriers have been removed. So yeah, that's a good question too. That was like a longer one, but I don't know if I answered everything, but I thought I'd give a bit more detail on that one.
Yeah, and tied with the budgeting answer, I feel like that's a very solid response.
Yeah, budgets are always hard, and I think it's always because you don't want to break the bank when it comes to accessibility because you don't want to turn people away. You don't want people to think like, oh man, accessibility is so expensive. So you really will always want to like meet people where you can, make sure you're doing a good job at it, and just let them know like you might put out now, but this will save you in the long run like a lot more money because if you get accessibility lawsuit, you don't have to solve that. So it's really going to help you now to prevent it. So look at it as a preventative measure and an investment to get more clients. So yes, I think it's a great investment all around.
Awesome. Let me do another check for more comments. Okay. All right, I'm not seeing any. Last call for comments. If anybody has a final question they want to ask Jamaal here. Have you ever done any, sorry, I'm coming up with questions myself. Do you have any fun exercises or anything that you've done to try to get in the mindset of somebody with a different disability that you don't have?
Yeah. So like I do a lot of work with like product teams, and one of the things that I usually try to do, we do like a design sprint. So we ask them a couple of questions on like a Figma exam board or something like that, and they can fill it out. One of the things I always like to just ask them is, can they describe something that can they describe a time that they tried to use something and it didn't work. So like they was excluded out of how to design it. It could be signing into an ordering process, could be walking into a store, could be get on an airplane, whatever. People will just basically tell me a time that like you experienced something and whoever designed that product or service, it didn't meet your needs. And we kind of share those out, and then we share about, tell us a time that like you immediately got to work in a group or on team and you immediately fell apart. So you immediately felt like, like this is like my team, we just did this. We just shipped this product. We just built this cool research report, right? This is awesome. And what were the things how did that make them feel? What were the things that did that? And then so I'm like, that's what happens when you exclude people from utilizing products or services. Like you take that joy away, and now you feel how make people feel before. Because I went to the website, I went to fly to fill out the survey, but I don't know where I'm at. So I'm caught in the flap. I can't navigate back and forth. There's no visual cues. So I really tried to build that empathy up with them, and also let people, hear like real life stories. Like, so if you do have like, I have a lot of friends, and I know like some of my friends, their kids maybe have some type of impairments, they may be blind or things of that experiences. So how does that make them feel as a parent who maybe can't access the service, so the kid couldn't access it? So just humanize it, I think, as much as possible. Yeah, I think that's probably the best for it. And then from there, just make sure people are following like the actual principles and the best practices that they can do to design different types of accessible products and services.
Great. You have a lot to say, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come and to share this deck with everybody, and just to talk. I really appreciate it too. It's been great.
We have one more comment. So
okay.
before I lose you, before you log off. All right. Megan, back at it again with what are the best ways to test a user experience for accessibility?
That's a really good one. That's a really great one, Megan. That's awesome. So like you can do a usable accessibility test. So it's very similar to a usability test, moderated or unmoderated, but except for you testing on maybe anyone you find out or a particular persona, you test on that same persona, but focusing from an inclusive lens. A lot of these tests that I've done, they have been with users that are either severely blind or visually impaired. The reason for that is because when you are designing any type of digital tool, if you design for focusing on a blind user, you can catch almost up to 80% of accessibility problems with that, because that user overlaps with so many adaptive technologies that they have to use to interact with the content because they aren't visually able to. So they are relying on like a listening device, so any types of screen readers, Apple's, Zolls, so they can like content that as well as navigational cues because they can't see it. They don't see what they're clicking. So like really trying to incorporate any type of user testing with that. And from there, I would say just follow best practices. I would only test with like one blind user and be like, hey, I found these blind problems. You don't know that individuals like different types of levels. So then pull in at least based off of your study, I would say 7 to 8 people at least to do that test with. Just like best qualitative data practices. And then from there, you can start to build the accessibility reports and still those out. And you do have to maybe walk them through a little bit more. So if you are doing a moderated study, I would say start with those. There are also like a number of platforms that you can get that have built-in accessibility panels. So if you are running unmoderated user testing. So like, let's say you're using any type of remote user testing tool, then you can send them that link and they already have a panel of established users that are either blind or maybe have a hearing deficiency, basically everyone you specify for, and you pay those users to go through those. Those are flame testers, or you can recruit your own pools. So like those are like some of the ways that I've done it. But yeah, I mean, it's very similar to basic user testing. You look at a task, you give them a task to do it, and you just focus on the adaptive technology or the assistive technology that they are utilizing to do the task. So if they are utilizing a screen reader, you still record the session, but you probably need a note taker, because like a lot of users who do utilize like voiceover on Apple or Zolls, they listen to these voice readers at like very high spaces, like super high. So you probably won't understand if you just try to listen to them like remotely through like a user session. So make sure you have note takers and ask them to turn them down. But other than that, it's usually pretty similar to any other user testing that you built out. You build out your slip, you build out your population and your questions and whatever metrics you want to collect as far as task analysis.
And on the tail end of her question, she asked, are there any specialty softwares that you know of that do screen reading or show contrast or levels that you would?
There's a lot. So inside that deck I showed, one of the resources in there is a Figma contrast cycle. So like inside the accessibility toolkit, so you can use that to set any type of contrasts. So that's like one really, I think, great tool. If you have an Apple device, you already have one of the best like built-in screen readers inside of Apple Voice. So you can kind of like utilize that. I would say probably practice your tabbing. So like that's like the key you push to kind of go through the content of your information hierarchy. So I think that one. And if you are utilizing PCs, you can also utilize utilize Zaws. Zaws is a little bit more expensive, but you can still get that on there. And there also are like external plugins that you can download if you are utilizing any type of Google browsers, any type of Google Chrome browsers. You can download like VoiceOver or things like that. So like you can go through and it will read the content on the website to do those types of testing and tabbings too. So yeah, so there's a number of tools. So some inside of the link inside the resources tab you can definitely check out.
And Megan says, thanks, Jamaal, for all the great answers.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, Megan, for giving me the opportunity to share, man. This has been awesome.
All right, doing one last clean through. Don't see anything in here. All right, and again, for everyone listening, there is a link in chat to access those tools that he was just talking about. All right, I think that might be it. Well,
awesome. Thank you, everybody. See you.
Time.
Bye.
Bye.